Hey, Pokedad fan club, it's me, Pokedad, and I'm coming to you with another um, deck profile. Now, I know I'm kind of late in this, and I've got to be honest with you. I haven't done some of the decks that I used to do. Like, normally when a set came out, I'd do all the major decks real quick, and that's all good. I guess it gives you a starting point. But lately, I've been so focused on states coming up and just trying to perfect some decks. I've really been trying to perfect Trevenant Break, but for standard, it just doesn't seem to be as good as it is in expanded. So, I started looking at Greninja Break, and one thing I should kind of mention to you about Greninja Break is it's really, really good, but it's very, very inconsistent. And so I have searched, I've looked at other YouTubers, other Poketubers, deck lists, I've looked at them all, and I have had a really, really hard time finding just a deck that just is consistent so that we can get to Greninja Break, because it is literally a stage 3 if you think about it. Alright, and so after so much tweaking and so much toiling, I think I have found the perfect build. And believe me, I've tried a lot of different ways. I've tried Battle Compressor Engine, I've tried Octillery, I've tried uh, changing the splits on the Greninjas, I've tried no stadiums, I've tried some stadiums, I've tried 9 energies, I've tried 7 energies. I have tried just about everything. And this seems to be the best, most consistent deck with Greninja that I can possibly think of. It's beating almost all the major decks. It's beating Night March. It beats most of the big decks, big basics, because we can tank Greninja and usually take a couple hits, and in the meantime we'll knock out a couple of their EXs, and sometimes I win these battles where I take 6 prizes and they take 2 is all. So it's really good, but the downfall of Greninja is that you can really lose in like the first 2 turns if you don't get off to a solid start, and you probably are going to go down a prize or maybe even 2 at the very beginning of the game. So you have to be ready for all of that. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, the first thing that most people ask in the Greninja Break is how many basics are you running? I've seen people only run 3 Froakies. I've seen people run 2 Froakies. I've seen people run Dedenne. I've seen 2 line of Octillery, Remoraid Octillery. Here is what I have come to. Alright, Octillery, you're usually either having to decide, do I want to get my Greninja set up or do I want to get my Octillery set up? And when you have to make that decision, it's another variable that if you don't make the right decision can cause a problem for you. So I took that variable completely out. We don't run any Octillery. No, not a 1-1 line, not a 2-2 line, none of it. I took Dedenne out because I want to start Froakie anyway most of the time. Dedenne can just really adds an extra turn to my getting my cards out. It might help mulligan less, but I've come to the conclusion that we want to start with 4 Froakies. And now I know some people are thinking, yeah, but when you go to Frogadier, you're gonna do Frogadier's what is his attack? Water duplicates, and then you're gonna be stuck with all these Froakies in your deck, and you're gonna have 4 water duplicates on your 3 water duplicates on your bench, and then you have Froakies that can never evolve. Well, I'll address that in just a moment. The other thing is I run 2 Shaymin. Now I really didn't want to have to run Shaymin, but I like Shaymin better than Octillery. There's a couple reasons why. If Shaymin gets Lysandered as a stalling tactic, it only has a retreat cost of 1, so I can just attach an energy and retreat. Octillery has a 2 retreat cost, so I'm either then going to have to play Float Stones, which slow the deck down, or I'm going to have to play more escape ropes and switches. Alright, in this deck, I only just play one escape rope. That's the only switching card I have. Alright, the second thing about Shaymin is that it gives me the cards I need now. With so much item luck, Trevenant, Toad, Vileplume, I don't have time to set up an Octillery. I need to get my cards now and get through a good 10 to 15 cards on turn 1 if at all possible, so that I can get these Greninjas going. Otherwise, I'm just going to get killed by having item lock all the time. Now, I know a lot of people say, don't play Shaymin, don't play Shaymin. It's the trade-off you have to make this deck consistent. Is it likely, like, the Night March match is usually very strong for Greninja, but when you're playing two Shaymins, you want to try not to bench them. Otherwise, Night March will take 4 easy prizes there. That being said, the Night March match is still really good for us. Okay. Alright. So play 2 Shaymins, play 4 Froakies, play 4 Frogadier, water duplicates, search your deck for 3 more Frogadier and put them up to 3 more and put them on your bench and shuffle your deck afterward. Alright, so ideally we want to try to get, if we're going second, we want to try to Wally into that Frogadier, so that we can go ahead and get the Frogadiers out onto the bench. Now here's the thing though, we don't always have 3 Frogadiers to grab. It's possible 1 or 2 may be prized. So it's always important to go ahead and have a couple more Froakies on the bench, especially if you got 1 or 2 Frogadiers prized. You want to get that many Froakies on the bench so that when you release those prizes, you can begin building those Froakies up. That's why you want to have a couple extra Froakies, even though you're going to be water duplicating most of the time. Another thing to consider though is if you're going first, sometimes I can Wally into the Frogadier, and then on turn 2 I can go ahead and get into a Greninja and Wally again, and I can have Greninja Break on turn 2. It doesn't always happen like that, but if we want to be more aggressive, we can do that, double Wally or Greninja Break by turn 2, and we're now hitting for, if you think about it, we can do a Shuriken, giant water Shuriken for 60, and then add in another possible 100, and we can hit for 160 turn 2. It's not too bad if you think about it for a Greninja deck. Alright, now let's talk about Greninjas. That's the next thing. Some people say play a 2-2 split. That's what most people are playing. I have found that actually makes your deck problematic. Okay, this Greninja, the one from Breakpoint, is the one you should be playing the most of. You should be playing 3 of those. Alright, and then you should be playing 1 of the Greninja from XY. It's Water Shuriken. Alright, now let's talk about why this works. Okay, ideally what we want to be doing is we want to, if we can get 2 Greninja Breaks set up, we can do 2 giant water Shurikens per turn and then still hit with Moonlight Slash. With a Muscle Band we can hit for 100. That means we can do 220 damage every turn with our Greninjas, and we can place that wherever we want. So we might be able to hit 2 things on the bench, take them out and take 2 prizes, and then hit an EX for 100 in the active. So, but the reason we want to use this Greninja is it has no retreat costs. So we don't have to escape rope, we don't have to attach an energy and retreat. We can just retreat into the other one, and then the next turn this one can take a little bit of damage, and then we can retreat into the other one. And this is what makes also why I chose to do 2 Rough Seas. It's because if these things are retreating back and forth, sometimes you can get them, you know, if you heal this one 30, then retreat it, the next turn heal another 30, I mean, you're healing at 60, and it's got 170 HP. It's gonna, instead of having a 2-hit KO a lot of times, now the people are gonna have to do a 3-hit KO on your Greninja Break. So that's why I prefer 3 of these. Now, why do we still play, why not go with a 4th one? Why play 1 of these? Well, there's a couple reasons. The Water Shuriken can come in handy in some situations. For instance, Night March is very good. We can take out a Phoebus, or we can take out a Joltik on the bench. Another place that I've noticed it is against Garchomp. What we can do is we can Giant Water Shuriken one of the Gibbles on the bench, taking it out for a knockout. We can then Water Shuriken for 30, breaking the Focus Sash, and then we can Miss Slash for 100, meaning we can take a Garchomp out and a Gibble out. And if we take the Gibbles out, we know that it's a Stage 2 deck. If there's no Gibbles on the bench, there is no way they're going to be able to hurt me next turn. And then every time they bring something back out on the bench, I just snipe it off before it can evolve. Because they usually don't play Wally in their deck. So once you get to that point where you can take the active Garchomp out with this guy, and then use the Giant Water Shuriken on the Gibble on the bench, you've got game pretty much at that point. Alright, so for maybe those that aren't familiar with Greninja, I'll go over the attacks real quickly. Shadow Stitching does 40 damage, and then it acts like a Hex Maniac. Alright, so that means your opponent can't use any abilities for next turn. This is really good against bat decks, so that they can't snipe you with bats. That makes them very, very good. Moonlight Slash, though, is the attack we really, really want to use most of the time. It does 60 damage, and then if we bounce the energy back to our hand for an additional 20 damage, we can do an additional 20 damage. So we can hit for 80. If we've got a Muscle Band, we can hit for 100. And we get that water energy back in our hand, which is really awesome because now we've got the water energy ready for a Giant Water Shuriken on the next turn. Then we can Sycamore, or we can Fisherman the energy back into our hand, and we can keep going from there. Alright, so that is that Greninja. This one is Water Shuriken. Again, you use an energy, but it can be on your bench, so you don't have to have it in the active like you do Greninja Break. Does 30 damage to anything you want, or 3 damage counters to anything that you want, even on the bench. And then Miss Slash hits for 50. Now the reason again why we don't want this one to be in the active as much, because it has a retreat cost, and because Miss Slash doesn't really do a whole lot. It does 50 damage with a Muscle Band, does 70, which is not terrible, but it's just not great. Okay. Alright. Then Greninja Break has the Giant Water Shuriken. Discard an energy, and then do 6 damage counters wherever you want it. That's what makes this deck super good, is the Giant Water Shuriken. Alright, so that's our Pokemon line. It's just Greninja and Shaymin. That's it. I've tried Manaphy. That didn't really work either. So this is what I found to be the most consistent deck. Alright, so now let's talk about how many Dive Balls and Ultra Balls you should play. Alright, for the longest time I'd only play 4 Dive Balls. Everybody said that's all you need. It's not true. If you're playing with Artillery, it might be okay, because everything is water that you need to grab. But what I found very quickly is with 4 Dive Balls, you're not going to get everything you need quickly enough. So you have to draw into it with Sycamore. So what I did is I said, what if we went ahead and added more balls, like level balls? So I tried level balls, and it was great because it would get us the Froakie and the Frogadier, but then it wouldn't get us the big boys, Greninja and Greninja Break, and it certainly couldn't get Shaymin either. So I come to the conclusion that the most consistent deck includes 4 Dive Balls and 4 Ultra Balls. That means the 4 Ultra Balls will give us a good shot at being able to grab the Shaymin when we need it. It will also lower our hand size so that Shaymins can draw more cards for us. And then Dive Balls can grab whatever we need, especially in the late game, can grab the Greninjas and the Greninja Breaks for us. And the Ultra Balls can do that for us too if we need it. So those are the 4 Dive Balls, 4 Ultra Balls. Now, to add more consistency, we play 4 Trainer's Mail. I tried 2, I tried 3, but just to be the most consistent we possibly could, we played 4 Trainer's Mail. Alright, now let's talk about some of our one-ofs, and I'll also talk about my VS Seekers, because you're probably looking at only 2 VS Seekers and you're thinking, why? Alright. Energy Retrieval. We play 1. I'd love to have room to have a second, but with Fisherman in here, we're okay. We don't really necessarily need one. But Energy Retrieval can be is very useful because we're throwing a lot of energy out with the water shurikens, so we want to be able to get it back. I've kind of alluded to this, but we play 1 Escape Rope. If Shaymin gets stuck in the active, we can attach an energy if we need to, but we also have the Escape Rope option. And I like Escape Rope better. It might move something to the active, to the bench that's in the active of theirs that we don't really want, but it also, most of the time, it's going to move something that has a lot of energy on it to the bench and bring up something that doesn't have a lot of energy on it. And so either they have to choose to retreat that new thing that just came up, or they're going to have to build it up with energy again. Excuse me, guys, it's late. So here's what. So my thinking here is we can keep sniping that thing that's on the bench with our giant water shurikens and our water shuriken. Knock it out before it can ever get back up to the active to hurt us. All right. We're also playing 1 Professor's Letter, so we grab 2 water energies. I like to have a 1-1 split here so we can get energies out of the discard pile if we need it, or we can get energies out of the deck if we need it. For the longest time, I played 2 Sacred Ash, and I would prefer to play 2 Sacred Ash, but because we are just so tight on space, we're only playing the 1 Sacred Ash. Now, are there going to be times where you're sitting with a Sycamore in hand, 2 breaks, and your Sacred Ash in your hand, in your opening hand? Yeah, it's going to happen. Trust me, it will happen. I've played this deck so much that it does happen. And you either have to decide, you know, can I live without 2 breaks? Or what am I going to do, you know? Or maybe you can get into a judge and we can recycle it. One thing I should point out is some people only play 2 breaks, but I have found because of this very reason that you might end up sycamoring some away, we want to play 3 breaks, and also because if 1 gets prized, we still have 2 available to us. Alright, so those are kind of the one-ofs. Let's talk about VS Seeker. One thing I really like about Greninja Break, it fights through item lock pretty well. If you can get in 1 turn of items, you know, you can do really good. And you can go ahead and begin starting to get everything set up. But the cool thing is really once you have the Greninjas in place, there's really not a whole lot more to this deck. It's not like a Skyfield deck where you got to keep getting more and more stuff on the bench, and so you're not as dependent on your items as you would be, and we can always sycamore and hopefully draw into the stuff we need. So it plays through item lock pretty well. The only problem I found is I would much rather have more supporters in this deck, higher numbers, and then a lower count of VS Seeker, because the last thing I want is to get item locked and I can't grab anything with my VS Seeker. So in this case, I decided to just go 2 VS Seekers, And so that means we're playing higher counts of some of the other supporters. I used to only play one fisherman. Now I play two. Again, that's because I lowered the count on the VS Seekers. I was playing 4 VS Seekers and battle compressors, and it just didn't work. So I played 2 fishermen. It's going to make sure that I have the energy that I need. I play 2 Judge. Now, when N comes back into standard, this will probably get replaced with N. But until then, I feel like Judge is the second best draw supporter. I know people will disagree with me. Shauna will get me 5, but Judge gets me 4, and I also put my opponent down to 4. So, to me, the trade-off is we're putting our opponent on equal footing with us. When I was playing the Battle Compressor version, I would use Ace Trainer. Ace Trainer was quite a bit better, but it still wasn't as consistent. So we play 2 Judge. I don't like taking the risk on Birch, because then it's like judging myself but not my opponent. So Judge at least puts us on equal footing. We're both going to be down to 4. And then with Shaymin in here, we can still pull out of that if we need to. One Lysander. Lysander's not really all that big in this deck because we hit so much stuff to the bench anyway. So Lysander might be useful at the end game where we're somebody trying to pull something to the bench and we want to try to hit it for 100. Lysander can finish off the game, but he's really not as used as much as, say, other decks. Alright, playing Sycamore, 4 of those, we have to get through our deck. So Sycamore is the way we go with that. 3 Wallies. I would even almost like to bump this up to 4, but again, we just don't have the room. But if you can start with Froakie and Wally in your starting hand, and then get the Frogadiers going, so that you are getting all on turn 1, you get the 4 Frogadiers in play. It's just too good to pass up. And then also, like I said, we can go wide by getting a bunch of Frogadiers, or we can go deep where we can Wally twice and we could be into a Greninja Break by turn 2. So I really like Wally. He really does make this deck very, very good, because sometimes you don't have the Pokemon in hand and you don't want to risk drawing 7 cards and not hitting something that you need. So Wally will make sure that you get the Greninja or the Greninja Break, and then you can start attacking. Play 1 Xerosic. This is mainly for Garbodor. If we play against Garbodor, they can really hinder us with Hex Maniac and with Garbodor. But Garbodor is a bigger problem because it becomes a permanent issue. So we want to play a Xerosic to try to get rid of the Garbodor. The other option is we can Lysander Lysander it up and take it out that way. Alright, I mentioned Rough Seas. We play 2 Rough Seas. I'm okay going against Manectric and Seismitoad decks and giving them the 30 healing, because once we get going, we're going to hit hard, and sometimes we're going to one-hit KO them anyway, with all the water shurikens going around and then hitting with Shadow Stitching or Moonlight Slash. So I'm okay, and in the long run this benefits me more than it benefits them, because I can keep retreating my Greninjas back and forth and healing them, almost kind of like how Mega Manectric does it. But the thing is we can still hit Mega Manectric while he's on the bench. They can't. So they can't hit our Greninja on the bench unless you count Manectric hitting with his overrun. We do play 2 Muscle Bands. That just helps the attack go even stronger. And then finally we play 8 Energies. Again, I've tested a lot of stuff. Some people say 7 is enough. I really would prefer to have 9, to be honest with you, but again, it's one of those things where I can make do because I have enough ways to get the energy back with just 8. 8 seems to be good enough. It usually allows me to start one in my starting and at least begin to get those Frogadiers out. So anyway, guys, that is my Greninja Break deck. It's a little different than maybe some of the other ones you've seen. There's a lot of questions about what you should run, and this is my personal opinion. It has run really well for me. Once I've started, first, before I started this deck, which is the most consistent I've ever had, I mean, I think I've been winning 80% of my matches or more on PTCGO. And then I've only tested this version maybe a half dozen times, but I haven't lost yet. Not saying I won't. Just saying that it's really powerful. So anyway, guys, this is PokeDad signing off. Please hit like, hit that thumbs up for me. Comment below, tell me what you think. And then also, if you haven't subscribed, please feel free to subscribe. We will talk to you later. This is PokeDad signing off.